Good evening. Welcome to the Tuesday, November 4th regular City Council meeting. D. Stiles Elliott, our City Clerk, would you please call roll?
Mayor Benjamin.
Present.
Councilmember Delira.
Here.
Councilmember Fajarin. Councilmember Guido.
Here.
Councilmember Parks.
Here.
Councilmember Weller.
Present.
Councilmember Wright.
Councilmember Fajarin was not able to attend tonight and requested to be excused. If I could entertain a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Is excused. Next on to announcements. This is Election Day, so if you haven't already voted, please make sure you turn in your ballot to a ballot drop box by 8 p.m. today. Drop boxes are available on Southeast Paradise Street across from Paradise Creek Brewery, in the Rosars parking lot, and at the west end of the Cub on the WSU campus. We're also, with it being November, it means leaf collection, so the 2025 City of Pullman residential leaf collection begins on November 10th. You can visit pullman-wa.gov/leaves to find out when leaves will be collected on your hill. Also, with it being Thanksgiving coming up, the Food for Pullman is holding their 5th Thanksgiving food drive and meal giveaway on November 26th from 3 to 7 p.m. at the Pullman Senior Center. This event provides free meal kits to people who need them for Thanksgiving. You can visit foodforpullman.com to sign up for a meal kit or to find out how you can help. The Pullman, and for Veterans Day, Pullman City Hall, Pullman Recreation Center, Neal Public Library, and other City of Pullman administrative offices will be closed on Tuesday, November 11th. For Veterans Day, emergency services will remain available. From Parks and Rec, registration for Pullman Parks and Recreation winter activities is now open. You can visit pullman-wa.gov/rec to learn more and sign up. There will also be 3 drop-and-shop opportunities at the Pullman Aquatic and Fitness Center this year on November 22nd, December 5th, December 12th. Please register at least 2 days before the event at pullman-wa/drop-and-shop. And if you're not familiar with that, that's the opportunity for you to drop your kids off so they can have a place to play while you go shopping. And I understand there's always plenty of activities for the kids. Coming up in the library, Becky Beerai will be at the Neal Public Library on Thursday, June 6th at 1 p.m. to talk about Veterans Affairs. Come learn about benefit, access, and eligibility for veterans, including claims and pensions, health care, housing, transportation, and much more. And also, you can come to Neal Public Library on Thursday, November 13th at 6 p.m. for a talk about misinformation and digital platforms from a WSU professor and the League of Women Voters. Topics will include how misinformation spreads, why people believe false information, the consequences of exposure, and what we can do to combat it, and the role of AI in spreading and fighting misinformation. To see a listing of community events, please visit the city tourism page at visit-pullman.com/events. Next up on the agenda is non-agenda related community comments. This agenda item is the first of 2 opportunities during this meeting for the public to bring comments to the attention of elected officials. Specifically, this item is reserved for public comment, concerns, or other information not related to previous public hearings or final action on this agenda. Comments are not to exceed 30 minutes in total. Comments are to be directed to the mayor or the city council as a body. No comments should be directed to an individual council member. And if any would like to provide a non-agenda item or community comment, now's an opportunity. Please come forward to the microphone. There will be a timer there so you can see how your time's doing.
How long did you say?
So 2 minutes, and if you can please state your name just so that we can make sure we get it accurate in the agenda.
Yes, my name is Norman Lewis. I sent a letter earlier this morning and also some photographic evidence. I live in 1710 Upper Drive. My concern is about 1725 Upper Drive. It's absentee homeowner or an absentee person that manages this property. Illegal parking and noise disturbances become a frequent issue. I contacted the owner, Linda Kolf, on 21st of September 2025. I informed her of the noise disturbances which I've described at 3:25 a.m. that went on for some time. I informed her there were 8 cars parked there in her rental unit. I informed her that the number of cars parked there illegally on the streets is basically a daily occurrence. Ms. Kolf had a second incident of the same at 2:38 a.m. Noise disturbances, illegal parking. I tried to contact her. She didn't get back to me. As a long-term 35-year resident in Upper Drive in Pullman, I'm now preparing to take Ms. Kolf to small claims court in her jurisdiction. I shouldn't have to do this to this extent. She's not being held responsible by, let's say, the City of Pullman for the serious depredations for the property site she manages, i.e. a number of occupants, consideration for neighbours, noise disturbances, illegal parking, etc. I know I'm also not the only person that has this particular issue. So what does, in my opinion, the City of Pullman need to do? A, monetary fines for illegal parking, pay it and you'll obey it. B, City of Pullman makes money, it doesn't issue warnings anymore. The City of Pullman will also save money by not needing to come back and repeat giving tickets. Bigger fines are also needed for parking in wrong direction sidewalks. And code enforcement personnel suggested or recommended that I come here to make this pitch. I should also say at 6 a.m. I do expert witness work at the weekends, and these disturbances are interference with this work in my area. So the direct task is simply
Good evening, council members. My name is Chelsea Whitney. I'm the chair for the promotions committee of the Downtown Pullman Association, and I'm just here to share a quick update on this year's trick or treat held on Friday in partnership with Washington State University's First Down Friday. This event has become one of Pullman's favorite family traditions, bringing together local businesses, students, and residents for a safe and festive Halloween tradition. This year we had 35 downtown businesses participate, handing out candy, which was generously donated this year by Grocery Outlet in Pullman. All businesses joined in the Teal Pumpkin Project, which continues to offer non-food treats to children with food allergies or other special needs. We added a new Coug fan costume category with football tickets donated by WSU this year, and the winner came as the Blue Heart on campus, which I thought was very creative. We are thrilled to report our largest turnout yet. Pacer AI data provided by the Pullman Chamber of Commerce shows over 1,800 people. Last year we had 600 at this event, so that's a huge increase. Huge thank you to the Chamber for sharing that data, and also to WSU for partnering with us to make this event such a success. Events like this really show the energy and connection that make downtown Pullman special. Thank you for your continued support to those of you that were able to volunteer and creating a welcoming and vibrant downtown for us.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to provide non-agenda item related community comments? With that, the next item is City Council Member comments, and I'll start down with Council Member Parks. Councilmember Wright? Councilmember Guido?
No comment.
Councilmember Weller?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a few. I'll try and make this brief. First off, I want to thank Code Enforcement for informing residents in the McGee Park neighborhood about requirements relating to putting trash and recycling bins back. It's made a huge difference. The area is more walkable and more attractive. Second, I'd like to thank the City Council candidates, Tawny, Dee Dee, John Mark, Trevor, and Brian, who helped our community by having a food drive and fundraiser for our local food banks. From John Mark Mankey's Facebook, they brought in over 3,000 pounds of food, over 350 pounds of non-food items, 32 pounds of dog food, and over 2,000 in cash and checks. donated. So it's friggin' awesome, and examples of great public servants. I look forward to serving with any of you. The last is an event that will be coming up. It's Ruck for the Fallen, March for Heroes, and it's in relation to Veterans Day. So those of you who do not know about Ruck for the Fallen, their motto is deeds, not words. I've had the honor, and many in the fire and police have had the fire showed up in force last time, so thank you for that. And really leading by deeds. So from their Facebook, I'll explain. Ruck for the Fallen is dedicated to supporting our lost, injured, grievously ill heroes and their families. The goal is unwavering support achieved by raising funds for those heroes and their families. This includes armed forces and first responders. The amount of stress and loss, and this is from me, the amount of stress, loss, and experiences that all of you, that they go through can't be imagined by most of us. And yet they show up, remain some of the most humble public servants and defenders of our way of life and our community. The creator of Ruck for the Fallen, CSM Mitch Kriebel, he's a local guy, saw his friends die from suicide and struggle with mental health after returning from active duty, and has been driven by an incredible passion and mission to help others in need. Mayor Benjamin was important in helping the organizers Sarah McKnight and Marletta Sisak make this possible, and I am truly honored to help bring this effort to Pullman as well. It's the first time it's been done besides the small ruck that we did over by Walmart. On November 15th, 7:45, bright and early, to noon, there will be 11 mile, 11 feet, and 11 inches. Those who understand this relates to Armistice Day, which became Veterans Day. The last mile will be a ruck from with 50-pound sandbags for $50 each towards one of the 3 hero funds. Those funds are first responders, military, and law enforcement. The celebration part will be 11 to 12 p.m. at Lumberyard. There'll be a cornhole tournament, live music. We've got a local kid, country music star, vendors, food, drinks, and actually it'll be 1 to 5, my bad. And there'll be great company all before the WSU game. So the route will start, they asked me to help plan the route, and it's a little bit more, we have a map. I'll be out chalking the way on our sidewalks. I made sure that was okay with Sean and Mayor Benjamin. It will start at the Veterans Memorial Park, go downtown. I wanted to make sure that we were going to get downtown, it visible in the downtown area, by the city play fields on the trail. Then it'll take the Chipman Trail, go up Grimes Way into WSU, be visible by all the families, all the WSU Cougs, go past the Coug and fraternities and sororities, and then go past the Pullman train station and roundabout off to Albion. Then it'll go back into Pullman, ending at the Lumberyard. So as I said, you don't have to pack heavy and you don't have to go the 11 miles. You can jump in at Grimes Way for a 7-miler or around Larry Street for a 1-miler with a 50-pound pack. So please, sorry that was long, but please come out, show your support or cheer us on and join. And please don't forget to thank our first responders, our veterans, and those in the armed forces. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilmember Guido? I'm sorry. Councilmember DeLera.
No comment.
Next item is future agenda item requests. Are there any council members that have a future agenda item request? Seeing none, move on to Community comments on final action items. This agenda item is the second of two opportunities during this meeting for the public to bring comments to the attention of elected officials on any agenda item. The City Council will take final action item at the meeting, excluding items where public comment was previously accepted. Final action items includes confirmation appointments, consent agenda items, regular agenda items. This agenda item for the comments will not exceed 30 minutes in total. Comments to be directed to the mayor or the council or the city council as a body. No comments should be directed to an individual council member. Is there anyone who would like to provide final community comments on final action items? Seeing none, we'll move into our first action item, and that is confirmation of appointment. To the council, I am recommending to you for us to be hiring Fire Chief Ryan Scharnhorst, who's here, and I appreciate all those that are in the audience. And with that, I'd entertain a motion for his confirmation of appointment.
Move to approve. Absolutely.
Second. With that, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes, and with that, Chief, if you would come up so I can swear you in. Yes, please. And if you could introduce also. Oh, absolutely.
I'm inviting my family to stand behind me for the oath. My wife Angela, Eliana, Giovanna, Zechariah, and Jaden. I don't think he wants to come.
With that, so if you could raise your right hand for your oath of office, say I,
I,
state your name,
Ryan Scharnhorst,
as the Fire Chief of Pullman Fire Department,
as the Fire Chief of Pullman Fire Department,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
discharge the duties of the Fire Chief of the Pullman Fire Department
discharge the duties of the Pullman Fire Department
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
I will promote and protect
I will promote and protect
the best interests of the Pullman Fire Department
the best interests of the Pullman Fire Department
through fiscal responsibility, honesty, integrity, and loyalty.
through fiscal responsibility, honesty, integrity, and loyalty.
I will respect the property and rights
I will respect the property and rights
of the citizens of the Pullman Fire Department services
of the citizens of the Pullman Fire Department services
and to uphold the laws and Constitution of the United States,
and to uphold the laws and Constitution of the United States,
the state of Washington,
the state of Washington,
Whitman County,
Whitman County,
and the city of Pullman.
and the city of Pullman.
I take this oath and these promises upon my honor,
I take this oath and these promises upon my honor,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
You can pin the badge on him.
Turn just a bit so
Got to make
cameras
sure you
can see.
get good photo ops.
Well, I don't have anything prepared, and I'm going to keep it short. I'm very excited and honored by this and the support. I am looking forward to it with, I think, an appropriate amount of nervous energy. It always keeps me driven, and couple that with my passion, I am ready to go and look forward to good things. And I brought two families here tonight, my immediate family to stand with me, and the fire service family. We all stand together, and I can't wait to move things forward and support them in the great work that they do for this community. Thank you very much for your support, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you, everybody.
So at this time, we'll let those that need to leave go, and then I'll invite our legislators up so that you can join us. So it's always good to have you here. I appreciate the relationship that we have with our 9th District legislators. I feel it's something that is we definitely appreciate you, and I know that the interaction we have, the ability to call and talk is something that not every city has with their legislators. We definitely appreciate that. What I'd like to do is start just opening it up for each of you of what are the things that you see that we should be aware of going into the legislative session? What are the things that you expect related to that? And then after that, I'll open up to council for conversations and dialogue. And with that, Senator, I'll defer to you. And if you want to defer to someone else to start with, that's your prerogative. If you push the middle, there you go.
Okay. Well, I guess being the senior member, you always draw the short straw and get to start off. But first of all, I'd like to thank Congressman, Councilman Wellers, for your report on the effort for the veterans, first responders. Really pleased to see that going on in a city in our district. So thank you for your efforts. We're going into a short session, and early in my career, a short session was just that, short, make midterm corrections to a budget and move forward. As technology moves things faster and faster, people seem to think of it more as a biennial event. This probably isn't my favorite to have it, but we do have budgets to pass. We've got an operating budget that's probably about $1 billion out of whack. There's a variety of ways to solve it, and I think we know which way this one's going to end up going. The transportation, I think, was troubling in that we had a gas tax and we had fee taxes, but because of the deficit on the mega projects, 0 projects are happening outside of the mega projects. And if we're going to do a major transportation package again like Connecting Washington, that is a statewide effort, it will require bonding, and almost certainly the injection of revenue from the general fund, which is supposed to happen down the road, has to happen, and you have to bond it to build big things. The capital budget has been my primary responsibility in recent years, and we're in an excellent position. We retained more general obligation bonds than any time I can remember, so that we're in a position to respond to what the urgent matters of the day are, what the opportunities are. I feel good about that. The chair is probably diametrically opposite of me, and that's probably why we're attracted to work together. Many people didn't think that a very young progressive legislator from Tacoma and a rural legislator could work together, but we enjoyed a very good working relationship on a wide range of priorities and maintained that reserve. So I think looking at the capital budget is going to be my foremost activity. There'll be some things along the way that we'll work on. One I still haven't quit looking at is ways to save on school construction. Worked with Senator Mullet in the past on that. We got a couple ideas we're kicking around yet, because when school bonds fail, it isn't necessarily because people don't like schools. Their property taxes have just reached a tipping point where they just can't take anymore. So looking at the cost drivers is something we plan to continue doing, and I think we continue to enjoy our relationship with Pullman City Council and mayors during my years. It's much easier to have a relationship with a constituent back home than it is a contract lobbyist. Now, contract lobbyists are fine, a lot of them are my friends, but it's still better to have that relationship with the people in the district rather than a hiring person. So those are my comments. I'll turn it over to my colleagues.
Well, it's always good to be amongst friends in Pullman. And we took a bit of a walk this just before dark in the downtown. And again, I can't say how beautiful that is. It's absolutely an accomplishment. And it speaks to your vision that Pullman has a good future ahead of it. And that upgrade in the technology and the infrastructure will bring, hopefully, some prosperous times. And it's a little bit difficult after the session that we had, that all that work has to lay a little bit fallow while we hopefully can realign some of the things that had happened during the session. I know that in terms of our budgeting, the question is, you know, where did that money go? And a lot of it went to pay for things that we had bought in biennia before this biennia and didn't have the money to pay for. And so we didn't restrain that. So we did, again, the same thing, is we bought a lot of stuff that we weren't prepared to pay for again. And then in order to pay for that, the additional taxation has left a little bit of a constraint on the growth in the economy. And certainly the border communities like Pullman are experiencing that experience. And the things that bothered me the most was the property tax potential increase with the lid lift. That could be tragic given the constraints that the agricultural community is facing, and our community base is the agricultural community as well. And so that's problematic to me. And I also think that there were some hidden taxes that I'd like to illustrate, because I would like you to see where we work those budgets. One was the low carbon fuel standard, which the industry had met the goal, and so there was no revenue coming into that account for climate work. And so they tightened the standard, and that raises another 23 cents a gallon. And I think that that's something that gets hidden in the back of the budget, that it's not super visible like the appropriations bill that we had. And then the other thing that was troubling but helpful in a way in the long run is that there was a limitless amount that we could raise the cap and trade tax on your fuel. And with the help of industry and good cooperation between Rep. Fitzgibbon, we co-sponsored a bill that limits it to 80 cents. The most recent auction went 66 cents. And so you have a large cap and trade burden that's attached when all of that is implemented with the current gas tax increase. It's $1.53 out of every gallon that we pay to the state for state programs. A large plurality of that is not for roads and repair and maintenance, for things, big projects like we'd like to do, but rather it's for climate projects, including the new electric ferry and a couple of hybrid ferries, charging stations that are built by the state, hopefully don't become obsolete too soon. And a lot of those types of projects, 75% of that money goes towards those types of things. And then a large amount of the money, 25%, goes to communities that are disparately impacted by climate change, and that's determined by a number of rules. So to me, I think that we need to really advocate strongly in our community that a lot of these programs don't reach us, not very well anyway, but there is opportunities to advocate, in particular for pedestrian and bike and recreation dollars that can come out of some of that funding that may be of interest to the city of Pullman. But overall, we have to look forward to this next session and really try to bring fiscal discipline into some of that spending, and also to resist at all costs any more taxation, because it's crippling our border communities and making it unattractive for businesses on the border that can easily leave. I say that the golden geese can fly. We saw that with our airport and the 2 hangars that were planned. And I hope that we can restore some of that balance so that we can keep our good people here in Pullman.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to see all of you, and thank you for attending. It's nice to come here because this is one of the few cities that invite us. We get to hear firsthand what you're working on, what you need help with, the challenges that you're facing. And so kudos for making this an annual event. Since I am in charge of healthcare for the House Republicans, I will channel most of my comments surrounding that. I am very concerned. I'll start with the health, the financial health and stability of our hospitals. Pullman is not, they're not in bad shape here, but I can't say that for the other critical access hospitals in our district. We have 9 of them in our district. We now going to charge B&O tax on services that doctors provide through those hospitals. We're going to charge sales tax now on electronic medical records and the service fees, the updates that they have to do. We're going to put sales tax on them. And we also cut Medicaid reimbursement by 1% across the board. And all of those, I think the majority of my time is going to be spent on trying to do the absolute least amount of damage and making sure that people get the services that they need in a timely manner. And I think that that is going to take real effort. Last year in the budget, I think mental health and substance dependency, we took a real step backwards, not forwards, backwards. And all those things now, those people and patients now fall to the local resources that are limited, but that's where they're going for help. That is really going to eat up, I think, a majority of my time. I am concerned, as Rep. Dye was talking about property taxes. I've had more people contact my office this year, people living on fixed incomes, saying they're not sure whether they'll be able to stay in their homes. More so in the last 6 months than I ever have received ever. And so the cost of living in our state is a lot, and especially on people with fixed incomes. And I'm really worried about that. I think Senator Schessler had a bill dealing with some property tax relief and wasn't able to get that moved through the process, but that really concerns me. Keeping people in their homes, making sure that they can get the health care that they need in a timely manner, all those things. And one thing the counties are talking about, and that's indigent defense and the cost thereof, putting a real strain on every county's budget. We have parts in total of 7 different counties. And this is the first time in the years I've served, some of our smaller counties are openly talking about bankruptcy. And that is disturbing. There was a time before, I believe it was Stevens or Ponderay County? Ferry County, thank you. They literally came to Olympia with the keys to the courthouse and said, here you go. I don't think we're too far from that. Again, so we've got to get our fiscal house in order, and we've got to try to make it the cost of living hold the line at least, and I'd like to see some relief coming because people are having a hard time. So happy to answer questions, Francis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And, you know, you talked about the indigent defense, and that's something that does get passed down to the cities also. And so not only do the counties affect it, but then also the cities. And Representative Dye, when you were talking about the aircraft, that's that tax, that aircraft luxury tax, which it isn't a luxury, it's a business. is something where we have an employer in town that has moved one aircraft. They've stopped building a hangar. They've started building hangars in Lewiston, and they have a new plane coming in that will never land in Washington because of that tax. And so I hope that, and I know you're working on a fix, and I hope that's something that you're able to move forward on, and please let us know how we can best support that.
I think we have bipartisan support on that. An irony of math is that the tax that would have occurred for that one constituent would be $11 million. And the Sustainable Aviation Fuel Task Force, its spending line item is $11 million. And so the irony of it is that that is not sustainable for the individual that would have to support that program. As a single individual, it's not fair, it's not just. And so that, realizing that that had happened, I think that we have support to come up with a bipartisan fix on that, which is that shouldn't apply, that should go away.
With that, I wanted to open for council members, if anyone has any comments or questions. And I see you're thinking right now, and while you're doing that, I'm going to look to Sean to give you a little bit of break while you're thinking. Can you talk some about Airport Road and the impacts that we have happening with Airport Road, just for our legislators to be aware of?
Yeah, this was just made aware to me by my Deputy Public Works Director yesterday and today. We've received a RAISE grant to do the design work for Airport Road, which would create a roundabout at Terraview Drive and Airport Road, and then a 3-lane section all the way out to the end of the city limits line at Orville Boyd Road. We're about 90% done with the design work there. Because it's federally funded, we had to apply for NEPA, which goes through the state local programs to administer. And we just recently found out that they were looking at pausing the NEPA approvals so that they could, so that they could administer a condition requiring us to do a biological assessment to determine the impacts of 6-ppdq on salmon-bearing fish in any aquatic downstream in Airport Creek and even further. What that does to us is pauses the program and the design of everything to the point where we may not be eligible for the grant because the design and the environmental reviews will take up to 3 more years. So that's the recent one that's come to us. I don't know exactly how to navigate that yet, but we're working with our local programs coordinators here on the eastern side to how can we move that forward.
So we may be contacting you at a later date to help us as we navigate this piece, because right now, with how it looks, we basically may have to give up the grant, which means we have to give up the project.
So on the 6-ppdq, a grass or some kind of an organic buffer can absorb that, and I don't know if that could be added into the plan. And secondly, we had a project recently that we were able to waive the NEPA requirements, and then that expedited the project by 2 years, exactly like what you said. So perhaps there's a way that we can work with our people at the federal level to try and move towards that objective. I believe that you guys have studied that, and there's documents showing how much effort has already been made on that NEPA piece on that road. So let's see if we can maybe use some of those documents to seek some form of a waiver.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll be looking at all of that.
Councilmember Guido.
Thank you all for being here. I always enjoy our visits and appreciate you coming. And Joe, Representative Schmick, I want to thank you for your attention. You always are looking after the critical access hospitals in the rural areas, and I appreciate that very much. My My question has to do with housing, and we have a work group, community work group, that is going to be presenting a report with a recommended goal for the City Council to consider in the next year as it relates to increasing missing middle housing. And one of the things that we're hearing from our developers is the carbon limits that have been put on housing throughout the state, and their concern that it impacts the cost, and looking at cost as a major influencer on increasing the number of housing. I'm just interested in your comments on that, if we have any, I'm hearing that there's an effort to roll back some of those, if that is the case, and what you can tell us on that.
Right now, obviously, that has drawn the question, and so there's a couple of things. One is that it's been assessed that the average, for an average family home, the middle of the market, it adds about $150,000 to the build. And so I think that becomes untenable, given that we have such a high shortage of units in our state. And then the second thing is, it's called a bank shot in my worldview, but I was able to pass legislation to have a study and audit of how much it's going to cost the state for the public buildings that they own in their portfolio to retrofit for heat pumps and decommission the natural gas or coal steam plants. Obviously, the coal's been decommissioned. Now we've gone to natural gas. We received a number from WSU, that was like $1.5 billion to retrofit the campus. And similarly, in the budget request from UW, it was $294 million for their first tranche of retrofitting in their campus, and that's just for this biennia that they were requesting that. And I think that when the state realizes what they've obligated themselves, it's going to consume more than what they anticipated. And the question is the juice worth the squeeze? And how much, are there other things that we will be doing in replacing our carbon emitting energy generation and all of the transportation gains, that whether this is the appropriate use of state dollars. So that will amplify the fact that also it's falling on our private home building and construction. And I think that that's important to use that as our lever. That's my bank shot anyway, and that's what I could get this year. But there's a lot of questions being drawn when people are seeing these requests coming into operating budget and capital budget, and it's an extraordinary obligation to the state.
Councilmember Parks?
Thank you. Thank you all for coming, and I love what Representative Schmick said about, one of the few cities that invite us, and I'm thinking, wow, that's unbelievable, but thank you. I'm really happy. It's helped me my whole career as a council member to have this relationship with all of you, three of you, and to learn from you. I wanted to ask about, I know the transportation budget is probably not looking great, but one of our priorities is to sort of continue our work in the downtown, and I think one of you said that'll probably have to be furloughed for a bit, but since we've made this great improvement in on our main street, then the cross street with that is grand, and we're going to have to do something. I mean, DOT is going to make us do something if we don't take the initiative. So just wondering what that might look like, or again, is it something that's just going to have to wait until things get sort of leveled out?
Never served on transportation in 33 years. I don't expect I'll start, but had a pretty good mentor in the late Eugene Prince, who did chair it at one time. I just don't think, we've got safety and capacity issues in many parts of the district, and until there is a big package again, I mean, we may not get a housing development in my hometown because we're waiting for a traffic survey, which waits on a roundabout. We've got requests for safety improvements across the district that until there's a really large package, we're hamstrung because every new dollar put in was the North-South Freeway, Snoqualmie Pass, Columbia River Crossing, and absolutely no highway projects. Now, there was pedestrian type things or bike, but as far as actual transportation, and we've got a huge problem with the hybrid electric ferries. I mean, when you look at the overrun that, both candidates for governor acknowledged, and we're stuck with them. Even the ferry contract has essentially doubled or tripled in price. But what's really bad, they got a free ride on the delivery date based on an incentive program, but it's waived if there's hurricanes in Florida. So it is one of the craziest things I've ever seen. And, Pat Patterson from Pullman was a transportation chair as well. They live with ferries. We live with ferries. They live with rural roads. But this hybrid program just is draining us of a lot of those flexible dollars. So hopefully we have a major package sometime in the not too distant future because the need is clearly across the district.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you had the opportunity to see the work that we had been able to do with the downtown project, and that's something that really we were able to use. ARPA dollars out of COVID was really, I mean, we looked at a one-time rather than using it as starting programs. But Grand Avenue, as Councilmember Park said, is our next big one that we need to look at. It's critical. So, Councilmember DeLira.
Thank you, Representatives Dye and Schmick and Senator Schossler for coming here and for your service for our region. I really appreciate you all coming. I just wanted to highlight one of our legislative agenda items, which is the importance of the Washington College Grant for our students here in Pullman. In particular, how it's helpful in attracting students to WSU, which is a major driver of our local economy. And bringing them to WSU strengthens our city's ability to operate and also supports our local businesses that rely on their presence and spending. So for many students, especially first-generation students like myself, or I graduated as a first-generation student, no longer a student, but programs like the Washington College Grant provides a pathway to upward mobility, supports multiple industries by encouraging those interested in high-demand fields to pursue them without the burden of high costs. Besides high tuition costs, students also need support to afford basic needs, such as food, housing, and childcare. Resources like the Basic Needs Navigator, which was funded and passed as a Washington State initiative, is currently in place at Washington universities. So I hope you continue to support our students here in Pullman and statewide by supporting the Washington College Grant and the basic needs of our students. Thank you.
Councilmember Weller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, it's always awesome to see you all come in. I mean, and I'm really glad that we're doing it before the snow flies because I worry about you three coming over during that time. I guess I'm struggling to put words together because my concerns are more philosophical. I feel we're losing more and more local control. And we see it in the economics of the region, education, housing, mental health, and we know what works, maybe it works, over on the west side doesn't work here. What I find rather ironic is that, I sit on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, and we're going through our plan with that. And one of the things, the pie in the sky for us on that, is getting a MRF here, a material recycling facility. Because what happens is we end up driving our recycling all the way over to Seattle. And in their minds, well, we're not going to give you any money, but instead we're using gas to get it over there. So it's rather ironic. And then, as you see, we have a lot of things that are related to local control. However, it's tough to ask for something when what I'm hearing from all of you is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the struggle about how much is even coming down on all of you and trying to get what you need. So I don't know that I can actually say anything, ask for anything. We already have great champions in all of you, and mental health, of course, is super important to me. Veterans, very important. I saw you at the Palouse Basin Aquifer. You know what's going. All of you know what's going on. So I guess the only thing I can say is thank you, and then leave kind of with a thought. And I was thinking about as you were talking, as we were talking. In fitness and even in psychology, I would say leadership as well. There's a difference between the terms eustress, which is a certain amount of stress placed on the body or the mind to create growth, a new idea, a new career, something along those lines. And then distress, which can cause trauma or make somebody move backwards. And right now, in my opinion, over here on the east side, it's distress. This is not good growth. And so you have the list there. I'm not going to ask for anything. What I'm going to say is thank you for coming out and talking to us, letting us know how things are going, because I think it helps us become better public servants, knowing what all of you have to deal with there. So thank you three for coming out.
It's interesting that on a philosophical basis, local control and needing a MRF and solid waste, right? And to me, I think that that was one of the most interesting debates that we had this year for me. Others may found it to be too technical and obscure, and anything at 2:45 in the morning is obscure. But it was about the recycling system and making it run by a nonprofit that runs across 6 or 7 states now and is consolidating control of the recycling stream and impacting our local communities and really hurting the locally owned and family owned recycling businesses that we're so used to working with. And it is truly a top-down management from the largest corporations in our country and across the world, IKEA included, that brings those materials back into their supply chain, but allows them to tax the grocery cart for every bit of packaging in the grocery cart. So, to me, I think that's what you're talking about. I'm seeing us lose our sovereignty over a lot of our systems that are life-sustaining in our community. We're losing our sovereignty over our energy economy. We're losing the sovereignty over our wealth-producing capacity on our farmlands by just the pressures that are being brought to bear. And I agree with you that on that level, I have been speaking to that issue from the floor, but it's really hard to be understood by those that are, in their ideological silo on those issues. So we agree with you 100%, and we'll fight. The fight that day was not won, but we had deferred that bill for a number of years, and we just couldn't sustain it at the numbers that we had. And I think that, we see these types of policies get passed in the dark of night, but they're tricky. Hopefully, there will be an opportunity for people to challenge it. I think that people are looking at it in other states that have implemented it and have been unsuccessful in fully implementing it. And so there could be challenges from other states as well. And I think we need to keep our eyes peeled and protect our local communities and the life-giving supports that our communities have built up.
Last but not least, right?
Save the
Or
best for
shortest, whatever.
Save the best for last.
So as everyone has said, I would also like to thank you and welcome you to Pullman and for your continued support of everything that we do. This is one of the meetings I look forward to every year, as well as seeing all of you in Olympia when we have the opportunity to go over. I would like to end on a positive note, and that is just recently having been back and forth to Seattle, back and forth to Walla Walla, back and forth a lot to Spokane. I can't thank you all enough for the passing lanes that have been put in place. That has just made such an incredible difference on our 3 major entries and exits out of Pullman, and it's great. Thank you.
Well, I just want to make sure that we thank Senator Schessler. He was the one that spearheaded that and made that happen for all those passing lanes that we see. That's all Mark.
And I think once upon a time, we did talk about that here, and I think it was even thanks to your efforts, Senator Schessler, that some of that was expedited. And I mean, it was, you used at the start and the beginning, at the start and the end of school, holidays, you just used to sit and clench your fists hoping that the weather would cooperate and that we wouldn't lose any more students coming back and forth. And so that certainly was a priority. And yes, thank you.
So that kind of rounds questions. If we look toward the legislative session, are there any specific things that you feel we should be aware of, or things that we can help partner with you on to support actions that you're trying to accomplish during this next short session that is, it doesn't look like it's being treated as a short session?
Well, it really isn't treated as a short session anymore because people know how to pre-file a bill, and the system is geared up with all the automation to be something it really wasn't when not that many decades ago we didn't have annual sessions. That came in the Dixie Lee Ray era. So that's relatively new. I think watching some of the things we've talked about tonight, my colleagues mentioned indigent defense. If our counties are bankrupt, the cities are going to feel the pain as well. It trickles down, as you mentioned. And I think those type of issues that we share, large and small cities and counties, we have to monitor jointly, or it just slips away from us. We used to represent Franklin County, and their ratio of prosecutors and public defenders is literally off the charts if you could hire them all. The number of people coming out of law school with any experience that want to be a public defender is not real high. And deputy prosecutors are normally good experience for private practice, but really not something you do for a career. So those are the type of things that we have to stay together on in the 7 counties and 30-plus cities we represent.
I think the local control, as you brought up, Nathan, is a big issue, and it's not only for city councils, it's county commissions, it's school boards, it's across the board. And the more that we can keep local, I think the better off we'll be. They know much better on how to serve the public that elects them, and they can be much more responsive. But there has been a trend, as you've seen, to take that back to the state, well, the state will do all of this. That's not good government. And we're probably about as far away from Olympia as we can be here, and that's something to be thankful for. But it's not a good, the pathway we've been going is not good. And we've got to fight hard to make sure that that doesn't continue. And I would say that's probably, I am concerned about financial well-being, not only for the counties, but the cities, hospitals. We just can't squeeze people. We just can't continue to squeeze them. There's just not enough there. And so live within your means, I know, is a novel concept, but the state has not done that.
So when the state taxes excessively, it short sheets the cities and the counties. That's just the way it works. And people can only do so much. So what we did this year was going to happen, that we would all struggle to try and meet the funding needed to sustain our services, local services that we all depend upon. But one of the services that we had working really well recently was the ability to fly aircraft on initial attack on our wildfires. And that was the 1498 bill that our fire districts have given me nothing but, positive feedback, and there's a few tweaks that need to be made with it. It had a proof of concept sunset on that bill, so we'll be running that. Rep Dent and I are working on it. I've reached out to Noel Hardin, and he's given me some of the areas that could be improved, and so we'll be making improvements to that bill. And then, of course, to keep that a priority, that we are able to retain those aircraft for our services through the season, and to make sure that that funding is there. We're putting in metrics in that bill to show that this bill keeps so many more fires under 10 acres, and that saves the state inordinate amounts of losses in terms of the timber resources, in terms of the cost of doing those large complex fires. And so that's one thing that I would appreciate, having our community speak up loud and clear that this bill is essential in our region because we're prone to flashy fuel fires. The second fire bill that I'm concerned about is a bill that forms a liability fund for fires that are caused by utilities, and it will increase the rates. It comes right out of the ratepayer's pocket to fund that liability fund for those kinds of fires like we had at Moses Lake and Cheney. And it's badly constructed bill for sure, and it will be very expensive to our utility bills. Again, putting a strain on our communities in Eastern Washington in particular. So I think those are two things I would look at as concern. One, let's get the aviation fund permanent like we had before, and then let's really rethink what we're doing in terms of that bill, where we would put all of the burden on our utility ratepayers.
So any last thoughts? Well, once again, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you appreciate that our council meetings start at 5:30 now rather than 7:30, so it's a little bit easier to get home before it gets too icy or there's snow on the ground. But then also, we're going to continue to try to meet as early as possible for the weather considerations. We very much enjoy the partnership that we have with you, and appreciate that very much.
Look forward to seeing you on Olympia this year.
Look forward to it. Okay, thank you. So at this time, we'll go into recess until 6:40, so 5 minutes, and then we'll start up again then. So I'll call our meeting back into session again. And next item under presentations is a financial update. We have Jeff Albrecht, our Director of Finance and Administrative Services. Jeff?
Good evening, Council. I'm here to present the quarterly financial update. So this is financials through the end of September through the first 3 quarters. You're going to hear pretty similar patterns to what you've heard in a lot of the previous discussions. So not a lot of new news, but I will kind of go through, provide some updates, and highlight a few things. I do want to make one note. Right at the end of September, we were in the transition of our payroll systems. So we have our legacy system, which we'd still been using. We had been working with ADP, and we shifted over to Paylocity. We found that pulling data from 3 different systems at once was a little challenging. So there is some estimates done in payroll. There's probably going to be some minor variances, but it's pretty small. So I just want to put that contingency out there. So as usual, we'll focus a lot on the general fund. This is general fund revenues. This is a 3 quarters comparison over the last 5 years. So last 5 years comparison of where we're at through September. Again, what you've heard a lot, consistent growth from 21 to 22, 22 to 23, and then things really flattened out. You see 24 is actually less than 23. 25 is slightly more than last year, although still a little bit below 23. It is about $1.2 million less than what we'd budgeted to be at through 3 quarters. There is some timing related to that. I don't think we'll end that much lower than budget, but we are on pace to end below budget on our revenues and very flat compared to what it's been for the last couple of years, considering trend that you've heard me say before. I always put this slide in there. This is probably a little bit more for the public than anyone, but it just kind of lets people know where our general fund revenues come from. So as you'd expect, the majority of it comes from taxes. So property taxes are number 1 source of revenue, followed by sales tax, and then there's other use taxes. So this would be, the majority of this is related to utility taxes. There's also admission taxes, various other ones that go in there. And then you see the next one is fees, fines, and penalties, and followed by governmental revenues and grants, and miscellaneous revenues, and then our license revenues. So, but again, taxes is really what makes up. Property taxes is a big source for us, but is limited by that 1%, so it does limit by growth. And then the sales tax, as you've seen, it can have a lot more variability. Here's our property tax. This is a very, very predictable graph. It just kind of creeps up. We do talk a lot about the 1%. In addition to the 1%, we do get additional for new construction. You see new construction, not surprisingly, was kind of flat in 21, 22. Not a lot of new construction coming out of COVID. You see that little tick up in 23, 24, and then you kind of see it flat out again. There was kind of a little bit of a buildup that happened in a couple of years of new construction that's kind of flattened out again. In some years, new construction can generate up to 1 to 2% of additional property tax revenue. Now we're probably seeing it closer to 1/4 to 1/2 is what we're seeing. So it's not generating a lot as new construction's really halted. Some of the things we just talked about with our representatives about the cost of new construction have really slowed things down. So here again is our sales tax. This is through the first 3 quarters again. Growth, flat. We are slightly higher than budgeted. We budgeted fairly conservative, kind of seeing as a trend starting in 2024. The 3 quarters were slightly budgeted. If you saw what I sent out today, you might have had a chance to see the email. October was not a good sales tax month for us. It was down compared to last year and down compared to what we budgeted. So that excess over budget is a pretty good chunk of that actually is gone now, and we're pretty close to budget through October. This does not include the transportation benefit sales tax, so that's just something to keep in mind as that's not part of the general fund. A few other revenues to highlight. There's our other use taxes, which I talk about. The biggest one is the utilities tax. If you can see, it looks like utilities tax is a lot higher than historically compared, and while it has increased, the majority of that increase was not new city revenue. That was the shift from transit to the general fund that was made for this interim period through 2026. So while there has been some growth in utilities tax, it's not as big as it appears there. That's more just a change of funds allocations. You see the admissions tax, we're at primary WCU. Here again, where you see the impact of limited construction is our license and permit revenue, the majority of that related to building permits. Not all of it, but a large chunk of it. And so as you see building permits, you can see have tailed off consistently now for pretty much 5 straight years. That doesn't always lead directly to construction, but it's certainly an indicator of construction. So you've seen how construction slowed. And when that construction slows, it really affects us in revenue for self-generated. It affects us in sales tax revenue because there's a lot of sales tax on parts of construction. And of course, it affects us in property taxes. So when construction slows, it's kind of a triple hit to the city. Intergovernmental revenues, this is revenue that's either passed through from the state or through grants. The majority of the grants we receive are in our other funds. Transit receives a lot of grants, our street funds receive a lot of grants, but we do have some in the general fund, as well as the pass-throughs of things like marijuana and liquor tax, those types of things. Then general government fees, fines, and penalties, that you've seen a little bit of an increase there. And then our miscellaneous revenues, not terribly bad. We had a little spike in 2024 with opioid settlement and interest income, so we kind of expected that one to flatten out a little bit. But you can see again, the majority of our revenues are down in these areas, with the exception of a couple. Here's our general fund expenses. These have been very consistently just kind of a steady increase, as you kind of would expect as things go up related to inflation, those types of things. We are about $650,000 better than what we had budgeted, which is good. Keep in mind, though, that's based off a deficit budget, and we are dealing with revenues being significantly less than budget. So while expenses are controlled pretty well, it's still not making up for that loss of, or that gap in the revenues. Here's the general fund capital expenses, and I point this out. This looks like a very dramatic increase, which it is. Most of that is related to in 21 and 22, and even early in 23, where we weren't spending money on capital. And there's a couple of reasons. There's one, there was a lot of uncertainty coming out of COVID, and two, some of it we couldn't spend even if we wanted to. There was a period of time where if we wanted to order a new vehicle, it just wasn't an option, or construction projects weren't an option. So there was a need for this to spike up. But what it also did is it increased those expenses at a little bit higher rate, because now we had things that we weren't spending on capital that we saw there. So to date, we spent just under $1.5 million in capital. 2.5 was budgeted. That includes our Metro Parks transfer. So if you heard me previously talk about $1 million in general fund projects, then the Metro projects are on top of that, and that's funded by the Metro Parks District. So again, more for the public, just to kind of get an idea of where our general fund expenses go to. About 2/3 of it goes to public safety. So fire and police, not uncommon for any city, make up the majority of the expenses. So that's where things are set. That's followed by parks and recreation, and then our finance, admin, library, and community development programs. The other thing to keep in mind is about 71% of our expenses are related to personnel. So salaries, benefits, wages, those types of things. So just like any service industry, it's primarily people that you're paying for. I'll go through some of the departments here. Here's a legislative budget. So we are actually over budget. Some of that's related to timing. Because of the primary election that was held this year, we definitely have some higher election costs. What's a little bit challenging on those primary elections is they spread the costs based on how many things are on the ballot. Well, the primary election, because there's a lot of things not on the ballot, we absorb a major cost of that ballot being distributed. Obviously, the school district had some on there this year, but that's always one that's a little bit hard to budget because we don't know how many primaries there will be in our seats, which obviously there was 3 of them this year. I expect that, though, to balance out, and legislative will probably finish right about on budget. You'll hear me talk a lot about these departments, and most of them are pretty much on budget, slightly more or slightly less, but for the most part, pretty close, are going to end pretty close to where we thought they would. Finance and administration, so this makes up everything from the administrative to the finance staff, our grants, our communications, our human resources, so all those areas we kind of lump in here together. You see some pretty growth. The communications and the grants position departments are fairly new, so those didn't exist in 2021, so that's some of the increase that you see over time. It is slightly over budget at this point. Again, I expect that to balance out and probably finish right around on budget or slightly under budget. Law enforcement, again, budget was about 7.3 million. We're about 7.2 year to date, so a little bit under there. There's some timing issues in 24 that kind of caused that little dip. You'll see when I do the year end, that'll actually be more of a straight upwards trend line. But again, you see, public safety makes up the majority of our expenses, and we're definitely seeing increases in, a lot of the costs of doing business for those two entities for police and what you'll see fire here. Fire is a little bit flatter, but again, that kind of consistent upwards trend line. And these are just operating expenses. I pull the capital out of these to kind of make it a little bit easier to compare. If you include a capital, when you have large expenses, particularly with equipment, it can swing a lot. So, community and economic development. So this is our community development, our permits, inspections, those types of things. Again, you can see the growth there. They are about $100,000 under budget, which is good. But you've seen the growth there. This one's been affected over the years a little bit by some vacancies, so that's kind of why you see the up and down, but a lot of times those will balance out over the course of the whole year. Library expenses has been very steady, a little bit of a spike coming out of COVID as a lot of those services were limited, even through 21 and in the beginning of 22, but you've just seen a fairly consistent trend line there. As really the cost, just like everything else, with expenses going up related to things from personnel to insurance, utilities, those types of things. Parks and Recreation, again, you see the trend line a little bit higher than budgeted. We've seen some pretty good growth in a lot of our participant recreation programs over the last year or two, which does create some additional revenue, but of course also some additional expenses. We've also previously had budgeted that the operations of the Aquatic Center were going to end September 1. We are continuing to do operations of the Aquatic Center through the end of the year. That will increase expenses. Of course, there will be some revenue. It won't fully offset the expenses, but there will be some revenue associated with that to help offset those expenses. But that has the potential to create a little bit higher than budgeted expense in recreation. This graph, I think, kind of illustrates a little bit of what we're doing with, and these are full year, so these numbers aren't 9 months, these are full years. So you see 4 year actuals through the first 4 years, and then kind of where we're projected to end in 2025. And so what you see is in 21 and 22, we had the revenues and the expenses kind of increasing at pretty much the same rate. In 23, we saw a little jump. That was built up expenditures for us. That was the increase in capital that we saw. And so then you saw this gap created in 23. Had that blue trend line of revenues kind of continued on the same path, they would have started to kind of get pretty close together by about 25 or 26. And that's kind of what we had hoped was going to happen going through the budget cycle, is those revenues were going to catch up as our expenditures leveled off. Unfortunately, the revenues leveled off and actually looked like they might even dip a little bit this year. So that's what's created that gap really over the last 2 to 3 years, and what we're potentially worried about carrying into 2026. So that's it for the general fund. What I'll do is walk you through some of our other funds. Really we'll focus on the expenses on these. The revenues, a lot of times, are either grant related, or in the case of our enterprise or our inner funds, it's obviously just a pass through from the city. So this is our streets and arterial streets. You see the big spike in 2024. That's related to the downtown project, where the majority of the expenses, we had a little bit in 23 and a little bit in 25, but the majority of the downtown project's expenses happened in 2024. Total budget is $3.5 million, of which 2.1's operating. We're seeing so far that operational expenses are right where we think they need to be. Sometimes weather can play a little bit of havoc on this fund. If we have a lot of snow removal or those types of things, that can play a little bit of havoc. But so far, operating expenses are good, and we're under in our capital. Our utilities funds, we've seen, again, kind of a consistent increase in expenses. Total expenses to date is about 12.2. The budget through the first 3 quarters is about 9.6 for operating. We are under that nicely on expenses, which is good. And we spent about 4.2 of our 10.2 million budgeted for capital in those. It's always a little hard on some of these utility projects are pretty major, and sometimes they'll kind of cross years, so sometimes it's a little hard to estimate exactly where those capital expenses will hit, as a lot of those projects are pretty major projects. Transit expenses, you see the big spike up this year. That's related to the 3 buses that were done on replacement, so that was about 2.7 million, I think it was. 2.6 million on those 3 buses, so that's why you see the major spike there. The good news is the majority of that was grant reimbursed. Transit does a very wonderful job with their grants, and to be honest, that's great. It's also a little bit scary sometimes because if those grants go away, it could be really, really difficult to maintain the same level of services. But so far, we do a tremendous job, and Wayne does a great job in doing those transit grants. You can see the operating budget. We are about $600,000 under budget on the expenses, and you see the $2.7 million, which again, a majority of that, or almost all that's related to that bus replacement out of the $3.3 million in capital. So right about where we thought we need. With the shift, though, in the revenues from the utility taxes that had previously been done in transit, it will likely operate at a deficit this year with not being able to cover. We knew that going in, we planned it, but that's something that can't be done long term. We will need to and at this point that's set to happen in 2027, but we will definitely need to reinstate some of that revenue back to transit for long-term sustainability. Our internal service funds, so this makes up our equipment rental division, which is basically all of our vehicles for maintaining and replacement, our IT services, our GIS services, and our government buildings. So basically these are entities that work within the city, and their sole job is to do services for the city. Again, there's particularly on the ERD, there's some capital that can cause some fluctuations depending how many vehicles we're replacing, those types of things. 2025 involved a fire truck purchase, so that's why you see a big spike up in 2025 expenses. Fire trucks are kind of expensive. But overall, operating expenses are good. And this is important that these operating expenses really be controlled because, again, this is then a direct cost to the city. So the general fund, all of our other funds pay in. So based on what those expenses, it's important. And you see the about 2.15 out of the 2.5 million in capital has been expended so far this year. Next up is our Civic Improvement Fund. Also, LTAC is a lot of times what we call it, so our lodging tax. You see we had really great growth. Obviously, 2021 still had a lot of restrictions. 2022, things started to loosen up. Saw a really good increase through 2024. Just like most of the rest of our revenues, we've now seen that kind of peak out, tail down. We're still doing well compared to budget. 718,000 still good, but it is tailing off from what it was last year. Very similar to a lot of the other revenues that we've seen. So this is one I don't know if I've shared this before. So this is our fund cash balances. So this these are our main funds. We do have a few other smaller ones, but these are our main funds. These are the ones that I think are pretty indicative of financial health of the city. So the general fund, we began the year at about $6.6 million. Councilmember Wright, I think you maybe asked at my last quarterly if we had gone below that 13% or $4 million. We hadn't at that point. We have now. We're at about, we ended the quarter at about 3.5 to 3.6 million in fund balance. So we've seen about a $3 million decrease in our general fund cash this year. So we have gone below that threshold. Fourth quarter is usually a decent revenue quarter, but obviously a lot of expenses. But we're really working right now. We're starting to have discussions, starting to put plans in place to really know that we have to bring that. We can't continue to deplete that cash balance anymore. That would just put us in a situation where we're not in a healthy place. Our streets fund did have a slight increase in cash. Some of that was timing on some grant reimbursement, particularly related to the downtown project, as we had some expenditures in fourth quarter of 2024 that were reimbursed early in 2025. But you see our utilities decreased a little bit in cash. Transit, as I talked about, because of that transfer of the utility taxes. The interfund's a little bit of a timing issue. We do twice a year interfund, so they've accrued 3/4 of a year of expenses and only gotten about a half a year revenue. So that one's not surprising that's in the negative. But it is a good example of how we really have used cash to cover this shortfall and this decrease in revenue, and how we're now to the point where that's not really sustainable anymore. So a few final thoughts. Again, the revenues continue to be very flat, and in some cases even down. When we put together the 2025-2026 budget, it was put together with expenses exceeding revenues, and we knew that. And we at that point said, we weren't quite sure if this revenue trend was going to continue or if it was going to improve. And so we kind of, without slashing things, said, hey, let's do a deficit budget. Knew we had some level of cash. But we also knew we had to plan, and if expenditures, were higher based off revenue performance, that we were going to have to adjust. And so we're now to that point where we're starting to adjust in what we can control in expenditures to not continue to increase that gap between revenues and expenditures, and not continue to reduce that cash. And again, our cash balances are being used to supplement, but they're now to the point where they're getting decreased, that we can't do that for a significant period longer. So we're all starting to have some internal discussions. I think, plans that we've met with administratively to talk about for reducing expenses, particularly for the rest of this year and next year, before we go into the next budget cycle. I think next meeting I'll probably come back and share a little bit more with council on what some of those things are that we're enacting to try to keep those cash balances up and reduce those expenditures. With that, I will answer any questions.
Any questions?
I feel like I'm the bearer of bad news, and I apologize for that.
Councilor Parks.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. Always a really good report. But also thank you for giving us a heads up again, keeping us apprised of where we are, budget versus actual. That's very helpful when we're, going into our goal setting and just, being able to speak with constituents about it as well. So that's helpful. Thank you.
Councilmember Weller.
Yeah, I appreciate the report. I also think it's important to remember we've been here before, back in 2008 or something like that, where it was, the economy was very down, and we had, I know Troy had come to us, and I know there were some tough decisions that had to be made. So I know it can be somewhat, scary or depressing, but the knowledge you provide, wisdom you bring, I think, and with good leadership from Mayor Benjamin, I'm confident. So thank you for this.
Yeah. Any others? Thank you, Jeff. I have in my notes Metro, or is Metro now is Metro?
We'll do Metro after.
Great. I just got it in my notes wrong. Yep. So that's why it did make sense when I looked in my notes. So in light of time and where we're at, we're going to take the goals and priorities update and move that to the next meeting. And that gives Sean a little bit more time and also to prepare for you for that. So moving on, the next item is consent agenda. The items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and will be enacted by a single motion of the City Council without separate discussion. This time I'd entertain a motion to read the consent agenda by title only.
So moved.
Second.
With that, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes. With that, if you could please read the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 1 is a motion to dispense with reading the regular meeting minutes of October 14, 2025, and approve them as submitted. Item 2, a motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks number 2011-32268 through 2011-32496, totaling $2,040,755.46. Item 3, a motion to accept the Pullman Downtown Improvements contract as complete. Item 4, resolution number R-42-25, a resolution authorizing the execution of an agricultural lease agreement between the City of Pullman and Richard Druffel and Sons. Item 5, resolution number R-43-25, a resolution declaring certain property of the City of Pullman to be excess and surplus property and authorizing the means of disposal. And finally, item 6, resolution R-44-25, a resolution approving a 6-year transit development plan for calendar years 2025 through 2030 and the 2024 annual report for Pullman Transit.
Do any council members desire to have any items removed from the consent agenda to be discussed separately? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
With that, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item up is our regular agenda, and Jeff, you're on all of our regular agenda items, so back to you.
Thanks. I'll kind of introduce these three, and actually they'll be then the Metro Parks will have a very similar agenda item. So when we go to set the tax levies for the next year, there's kind of a 3-step process. So last meeting we held the public hearing. That was the first step. The second step is to do the ordinance. So in the case of the Metro Parks, the resolution to set that, and then the third part will be filing it with the county, which after this meeting I'll take care of prior to the deadline coming up here in a couple weeks. So what you see before you, and there'll be 3 separate ordinances. The city has 3 basically separate taxes that are levied on the community. One is the regular one is the EMS to support EMS services, and then the last one is the bond. So what I'll introduce first is ordinance 2520, which is the ordinance setting the regular tax levy for 2025 to be collected in 2026. You'll see there that this is about a $99,000 increase total for the whole city, which basically is 1% on the existing with a little bit of additional in there based off of the new construction. So that would be ordinance 2520 to set that tax levy with that 1% increase plus the new construction.
With that, any questions of Jeff? I'd entertain a motion for the ordinance.
Move to adopt ordinance number 25-20.
Second.
Second. That if you could read, please.
Yes, ordinance number 25-20, an ordinance fixing the amount of the tax levy for the year 2025 for collection in 2026 to raise revenue to meet estimated expenditures.
With that, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Jeff, on to you for the next one.
Yep, so ordinance 2521, similar background to what I provided. This is for the EMS, Emergency Medical Services levy. It will increase by a little over $14,000, which again is that 1% on existing property with a little bit of new construction on top of that.
With that, any questions of Jeff? Councilmember Weller?
So less of a question, more of a comment, and I know I had expressed this before, and I think it's important to say something because I know there will be probably people out there saying, you just heard how bad it is for everybody from the legislators, and yet you're passing these. And one of the least favorite things I think about being a city council member that I experience is not liking to vote on certain things such as increasing taxes on people who are already feeling burdened, but also understanding the necessity for our services in the city. So I'm sure, my feelings are, I can't speak for anybody else, but I'm sure they're shared in some form. It's a difficult thing to do, but I just thought that it needed to be expressed, so I
Any
appreciate it.
other questions for Jeff? If not, I'd entertain a motion for approving the ordinance.
Move to adopt ordinance number 25-21.
Thank you. With that, if you could read the ordinance, please, Dad.
Ordinance number 25-21, an ordinance fixing the amount of the emergency services tax levy for the year 2025 for collection in 2026 to raise revenue to meet estimated expenditures.
With that, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And on to agenda item 3.
Sure. Agenda item 3 is ordinance 2522, and this is to set the tax levy for the obligation bond debt service that was voted on by the community in 2017. So this is a flat dollar amount, so this amount doesn't change. There's no increase in this, and actually if there's new construction, that actually reduces the tax liability for the existing because it's spread over more dollars. So this basically is a 0% increase and the same number of, it's been done since it was voted on in 2017.
Any questions of Jeff? Seeing none, then I'd entertain a motion for the ordinance.
Move to adopt ordinance number 25-22.
Second.
Thank you. That, if you could read it, please.
Ordinance number 25-22, an ordinance fixing the amount of the special tax levy for the year 2025 for collection in 2026 to raise revenue to meet obligation bond debt service obligations.
Any discussion? All those in favor of ordinance 25-22 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. At this time, I'm going to pause the city council meeting. I'm going to open the special meeting, the Metropolitan Parks District meeting. And with that, D. Stiles Elliott, our city clerk, if you could please call roll.
President Benjamin.
Present.
Commissioner Delira.
Here.
Commissioner Fajarin. Commissioner Guido.
Here.
Commissioner Parks.
Here.
Commissioner Weller.
Present.
Commissioner Wright.
Here.
Commissioner Fajarin requested to be excused for this meeting. I'd entertain that motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Passes. On to first item of business is a motion to dispense with the reading of the October 14th, 2025 special meeting minutes and approve them as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? That, if you could read it, please.
Yes, a motion to dispense with the reading of the October 14, 2025 special meeting minutes and approve them as submitted.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next up, resolution, and with that, back to you, Jeff.
Yeah, so the Metro Parks is basically on a parallel track. So back on last meeting on the 14th, we held the revenue hearing. At that point, discussed a 10% increase to the Metro tax. So again, this will be the to set the levy for 2025 to be collected in 2026. What is being proposed here is a 10% increase, which would generate a little less than $70,000. 10% increase seems like a lot by percentage-wise. If you put it in perspective, though, $70,000, a 10% increase in $70,000 is less than 1%. 1% on the general generated almost $100,000. So while it is a larger increase, what has happened in the Metro Parks District for a while is because there is a cap on the total taxes that property can take, and Metro Parks is kind of the lowest on that priority list. What happened is, as there is additional taxing that has happened over the last 2 decades, the tax amount has actually gone down at times. And so we actually have excess capacity. You actually have the ability to raise this by over 30% if you wanted to. That's not the recommendation here and not the suggestion, but that is the ability to raise this because that taxability goes up 1% every year, even if you don't apply it. So that is the possibility. So because there is some flexibility, 10% is being proposed here. Just to kind of give you a little bit of all of the taxes combined. So the increase in the general, the increase in the EMS, the increase in the metro, and then the total for the bond obligation is still less than 1.7% increase in total property taxes for existing property owners. So just to give a little bit of background on that.
That, any questions of Jeff? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to pass resolution MPD 0125.
Move to adopt resolution number MPD-01-25.
Second.
Is there a second? With that, if you can read.
Resolution number MPD-01-25, a resolution fixing the amount of the property tax levy for the year 2025 for collection in 2026 to raise revenue to meet estimated expenditures of the Pullman Metropolitan Parks District.
That, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. At this time, I'd accept a motion to adjourn the Metropolitan Parks District meeting.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's adjourned. I'm going to reconvene now the city council meeting. And with this, we have executive session. And RCW, let's see, at this time, city council will adjourn to an executive session pursuant to RCW 4230-.110(1I) to discuss with legal counsel representing the city matters related to agency enforcement action, or to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency potential litigation concerning litigation that has been specifically threatened to which the agency, the governing body, or the member acting in the official capacity is or is likely to become a party. The executive session is expected to last approximately 5 minutes. If it becomes necessary to extend the executive session, someone will return to announce the anticipated additional time. The council does anticipate taking action following the executive session. It's now 7:23, so we'll start the executive session at 7:25. To sign. So it's 7:30, calling the city council back into session. That are to entertain first a motion.
Move to approve settlement with La Riviere Construction and approve and authorize the mayor to sign said settlement.
Second.
That, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That, I entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Yay.
Thank you.